Hello, welcome back to the Prestige TV podcast feed. I'm Joanna Robinson.
I'm Rob Mahoney.
And it is Pluribus Friday. The first of many Pluribus Fridays we'll be sharing together. Rob and I are here to cover the Apple TV Plus show Pluribus from start to bitter end.
It can only be bitter, I imagine. Do you think this ends well?
Oh, I've seen this movie. You've seen this movie. We've all seen this movie. We are today going to talk about specifically episodes 1 and 2 because they dropped as a double premiere last night, Thursday night. So if you have not seen episode 1, We As Us, written and directed by Vince Gilligan.
Or as I prefer, We As Y'all.
We As Y'all, as we said before we started recording in Rob's local dialect. And then episode 2, Pirate Lady, written and directed by Vince Gilligan. Mm-hmm. So we will be talking about those 2 episodes. So spoilers for those episodes, but go watch the show. We should say, before we start everything, this premiere, I don't know it was correlation or causality.
Yeah.
But when this premiere dropped last night, Apple TV crashed for like hundreds and thousands of users. Now, what I like to believe is because everyone was eagerly tuning in to this Vince Gilligan show. I would like to believe that. But Rob, any thoughts about that?
I mean, you can't pay for press that coincidental.
Yeah.
To the point that, I'm starting to wonder, is this choreographed? Is this planned? Is this show that is about the mass manipulation and choreography around the world? Like, it would not surprise me if Apple TV Plus all of a sudden had all of its ducks in a row to shut down at just the perfect time. So either congratulations or congratulations, whichever way it went.
The last time I remember this happening, I mean, I know it happened with Thrones a couple times, and I remember it happened with the True Detective season 1 finale for the old HBO Go days.
But Thrones was just a rendering issue, right? Like, they just couldn't get the blacks black enough on screen, and so we all suffered together.
Yeah, we really did. Anyway, I would love for a monoculture shaking, groundbreaking premiere to have crashed Apple TV. I don't know if that's the case, but Pluribus is here. We've talked about it a little bit in our anticipation of it. It is from Vince Gilligan, who created Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. It is a hugely expensive show. Surprise, surprise, from Apple TV. And we're going to talk about sort of where we see those dollars, because it's not in the usual place you see in an Apple TV Plus show, which is in the cast, right? We don't have.
Well, Jennifer Aniston could show up in episode 3. We don't know.
I can't wait to see her eerie smile. So Ray Seahorn is the star of this show, and that's it. I mean, we get Miriam Shore as her sort of scene partner for half of season 1, episode 1, and then Carolina Wydra shows up as Zoja, who seems like she's the co-lead of the show, maybe going forward. But there are no huge movie stars in this, which is something we've kind of come to expect from an Apple TV Plus show. So this is the sort of like hand wringing so many people have done at the top of their Pluribus like reviews or articles or whatever, is like, are people going to care about a non-IP show that doesn't have a star in it in 2025, and that sort of like the biggest hook they have is from the creator of Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, Not Too Shabby. What do you think, Rob?
I think it has about as good of a shot as a show with those parameters has. And you were talking about how it would be great if we had this sort of monocultural moment around a show again. Like, this feels special. This feels like something that, there's familiar beats, there's obviously familiar filmmaking, but the subject matter, the pacing, like, it feels grabby in a way that is really exciting. And once it grabs hold of you, it just begs you to want to ask questions, to like have a deeper understanding of what's happening, to look inward. It's a classic, like, what would you do in this situation kind of show that I could see it like really having a moment and getting some momentum. But it is an uphill battle when you don't have that kind of star power. It is an uphill battle when you are putting the money on screen in impressive ways, it's still not like action set pieces, right? Like, this is not only do you not have Idris Elba, you don't even have the hijack. Like, what is one to do?
But Air Force One is here, Rob.
I guess we did hijack. You know what? You're right.
That's a great point. Leads me in sort of my first talking point, which is you put up this question about like the questions we want to have answered, but this isn't a theory show, like in the way that like what is happening ? What is the nature of this epidemic or whatever you want to call it, question mark. There are so many answers that come at the
Tons.
end of episode 1 and in episode 2. Whether or not we want to believe what we're being told is a question we can ask, but were you surprised by how many answers we got in just these first 2 episodes?
You know what? I'm actually not. And some of that is because it is a Vince Gilligan show where the pacing and like his shows do just kind of move. Like they are plot machines. They like I
They
guess
do
better
and they don't, because
You're
he
right.
takes his time with these sequences in a way where I love them, but then I get anxious. Like, are people going to want to watch this lady go from Morocco to Albuquerque, not even knowing why, with
It's
like
very true.
for 12 minutes with no score behind it? Like, is that something people are excited about? I think it's really cool, but I have questions about that. So
It is a completely fair question. But I do think in his shows, generally speaking, there's a lot of like, okay, that happened, so what's next?
Yeah.
Like the big thing is out of the way. Like sometimes very quickly, yes. Sometimes it's like you wait season upon season until you have an epiphany on the toilet. Like, yeah, that is a thing that can happen in these shows. But ultimately, like his projects are very interested in like the very sometimes grounded in real repercussions of the things that happened. And it's like how you pick up the pieces, how you reckon with everything that's transpiring. And so in order to do all the reckoning, there's got to be a lot of transpiring. And so I didn't think this was going to be a show where everything would be teased out until the end. That said, we're just kind of getting the first turn. And there could be, I don't know, other viruses or alien species. Like, there's so many possibilities as to where a story like this could go that it's okay to reveal some stuff right out of the gate. And it really only kind of adds to the baiting of the hook in a lot of senses.
Rob, I don't know if you know this, but they told us we are not aliens. So
they did say that,
but
they're an RNA programmed strand sent from space,
right? Alien enhanced humans.
Is an alien virus an alien?
This is a great existential question that we should ask ourselves. What makes a human? Like, I actually genuinely think that's the question that the show wants to ask, right? Okay, so to get back to the sort of Gilligan core idea, what makes a Vince Gilligan show? Because this is what Apple is banking on. Apple is banking on the fact that we will be excited about a Vince Gilligan show from the creators of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, that we will be thirsty for something that feels more Severance-esque, except, again, unlike Severance, or some other mystery box shows, this is not trying to hide the ball from us in a meaningful way, unless it is, and we're being duped. And I think that's interesting. I saw a lot of comps to Severance from people's reactions to the first 2 episodes. The Last of Us, of course, got called out, especially like when we're watching Racey Horn drive in a truck through like murder and mayhem in the first episode in order to try and fail to save the person who's most important to her. That's very season 1 episode 1 of The Last of Us. The Leftovers,
definitely.
I saw Gilligan Goes Lindelof is like sort of a thing I saw. So what makes this a Vince Gilligan show? And what makes this not a Vince Gilligan show, in your view?
Before we even get to that, Joe, I'm curious, with all those shows kind of in the sauce here, I was getting like some Last Man on Earth. Did you get any of that? The like Will Forte series? Wow,
I have not thought about that in a very, very long time. But yeah.
I hadn't either. And then all of a sudden, it's like over the top doofus flies it on Air Force One, and it's like, oh yeah, like there's just something about the opportunity that a world like this provides that's tapping into all of these different properties. And so it is post-apocalyptic, and it is existential, and it's also like having its fun with some of these ideas too.
Absolutely. I mean, so a couple things I want to say about that. First of all, on the official pod, which I always recommend an official pod around a Vince Gilligan show. They've been doing it like before podcasts were a thing on Breaking Bad, and I've listened to every single one of them, and they have like all of the behind the scenes people on it. And like, not that I love to advertise for other podcasts on our podcast, you should listen to us too, but the Gilligan verse official podcasts are always extremely good. And on the episode about episode 1, he talked about his inspiration for this, which was years and years ago. They were working on Better Call Saul, and he was taking a walk, and he was like, what if you were the last person on Earth, and suddenly everyone around you was really solicitous to your needs? And he's like, and I started thinking about it, and his original concept, the main character was a male, and he was like, then it got really porny really quickly.
Yes,
is what he said. So I think that's what Samba's character is supposed to represent in episode 2. And so he's like, okay, well, what if it's a woman? And then he was thinking about, I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched and sort of like what makes those stories work. And it's someone who's resistant to. There's someone here, be it your wife who's a witch or a genie that is your girlfriend, who is like, I will do anything you want. And you're like, I don't want that. That's where there's like good dramatic tension. So those are some of the bones that are here. And then also, before he did Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, of course, Vince Gilligan worked on X-Files, and he cited Darren Morgan, who's my favorite X-Files writer, as an inspiration here for that comedy that you're talking about. Darren Morgan wrote the episodes Humbug, War of the Copperphages, Jose Chung's From Outer Space, Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose, a couple different like
bangers,
classics that are weird and and most
even by X-Files standards, very weird,
and most specifically very funny. And so that is like a tone that he's reaching for in this. And I think when he said Darren Morgan, I was like, yeah, that's a lot of what we're dealing with here, which is really exciting to me.
Yeah, I think like the Vince Gilligan formula does include all of those kind of fundamental things. And you could even see it in like supposedly more serious fare. Like the humor can't help but creep out. The weirdness can't help but infiltrate a lot of the characters and beats and things like that. And his shows are also great premise shows, like especially Breaking Bad, very famously, like the Mr. Chips to Scarface model.
Right.
And then how do you get there? This is a different inversion of that, where it's like we don't know where we're going, and so we don't have the reverse engineering of trying to guess ahead of the plot, to your point about how this isn't like the most theory-friendly show. But I think it will be theory-friendly in the open-endedness of it. And that's kind of what feels like a new frontier for Gilligan, is like we don't have, characters we're familiar with like Saul Goodman and kind of know where he ends up more or less, and we don't have the Scarface endpoint kind of plotted out for us in interviews. This could be anything. It could be about anything. It could take us anywhere in the world. Like the possibilities from a filmmaking perspective, I think, are kind of dazzling. And that, for an audience member, I think opens up a lot too.
I think that I love that point. And I think something that felt so Gilligan to me in watching this was, again, those slow, patient. He's so interested in procedure and process.
This appeals to me, Joe, I have to say. Just like the OCD in me watching everything slide into place. I want to come back to it, but it's very appealing.
The cook montages in Breaking Bad, of course, were sort of like the most famous example of this, but he loves a sort of establishing montage. This is something he built up to. You and I just recently watched the Breaking Bad pilot. It's not really there, but eventually he will get to this point where it's like, you're watching a symphony of a sort of like quotidian, like a car wash or something, you know what I mean? It's just something like, let's take this ordinary thing and show you sort of the way in which the pieces of it are rhythmically, balletically sort of working around each other, and give you some like visual eye candy to go with it. And it's just sort of mesmerizing these and very patient. And I was really excited to see a lot of that, especially in episode 2, but also in episode 1 when we see the scientists in their sort of candy colored, protective suits, sort of like working with the petri dishes in concert with each other and stuff like that. Like that's so very Gilligan. So
completely. In conversation with those other pilots we watched, not just Breaking Bad, but I think this also has some in common with the Lost pilot as well, in that very like throw these people into the heat of something that they have no means of understanding. And it is first the initial rush, right? Of like, how do we get out of this situation? How do I get my friend who's in peril to the hospital? Like, how do we put out the fires that are engulfing Albuquerque? Into, okay, like you get past the first fire, and then it's like, what is life like now? Like, what do we do on the next day? And that's such a great formula for a double pilot, and I think a situation that completely merits it. Like this pairing of episodes, I think, is such a great way to kind of catapult us into the season.
I love that you invoked Lost, not just because personally it thrills me to have you have a working understanding of Lost, Rob Mahoney, who has watched all of Lost now.
It really was a toilet style revelation for me, finishing Lost and then replaying in my head all of the conversations and podcasts I have had with you in which you have attempted to compare things to Lost while I stare at you blankly, nodding along, pretending that I understand what you're talking about, or at least, pretending to continue the conversation. And now it's all just clicking into place. I feel like my whole life has been recontextualized, Joe.
Oh, a real Joanna listens to Rob talk about the NBA moment for you anytime I talked about Lost. But on the Lost front, let's talk about a little bit of terminology. On the official pod, they said this is what they are calling the us and the 12 people who are not the us. And they're calling us the others, which is a classic Lost terminology. You didn't like that. What do you want to go with?
I don't have a better solution. Like, this is the problem at this point, is we don't know enough about who they are or what their aims are to give them like a really evocative term. And they don't seem too interested in PR themselves, hence the joining. You know, it's like they're just going to kind of roll with the low-hanging fruit with this stuff.
That's the best they came up with, the joining.
Maybe
the joined is like, you know,
it's
if that's
a little better.
The others, the joined. If you have a suggestion, prestige@spotify.com, or
Please.
Rob and I will have an episode, a show-specific email for you before this episode's over.
I do have one proposal for you, Joe, regarding the name of this virus. You know, again, we don't know a lot about it or what its aims are or exactly. I mean, it clearly can affect humans and also rats at the very least, maybe other animals. We'll see over time.
The babies.
Communicated very critically by saliva. You know, you can lick a donut or, as we see over and over, just people making out left and right. I propose to you the smooch virus. How do you feel about the smooch virus?
I don't hate it.
You know?
I don't. But like, do you think Mono will get upset because isn't it like the kissing disease? Isn't Mono like
Mono,
that's my
Mono's going to be
brand?
Suing Apple immediately. Like, this is critical. This is all Mono has, is being the kissing disease.
Exactly. All right. So they're calling the others, and then Carol and the rest. And this is the others I can roll with. This is the one where I'm having some issues with, but they're calling the 12 the old school.
No.
Vince Gilligan,
simply not.
Vince Gilligan, we think you're an actual genius, but Rob and I don't like this. So
no.
The what do you want to call them? Do you have any thoughts?
I mean, the leftovers again, right there. The immune, like, again, something.
You know? Okay.
This is one that I think we very crucially do need to crowdsource, Joe. As you said, please email us at prestigetv@spotify.com or our show-specific email to be announced at any point during this podcast. Who's to say? But we need help.
Do you want to do it right now?
Let's do it. Let's battle it out.
Okay. Rob and I have dueling ideas. I really only have one idea. Rob has several. Rob, what do you have?
So my initial idea was yourlifeisyourown@gmail.com. That's obviously taken by some Instagram guru. Like, that was never going to be in the cards. I did consider Proud Haughty Raban, but the spelling on Raban is like, maybe could trick some people. I don't want anyone's emails to get lost out in the ether. I came down to two.
Okay.
One, psychicglue@gmail.com, which I like, but I much prefer lightningboltunicorn@gmail.com.
Very good. The hood decoration on the truck that Carol
would drive
home.
that truck, for the record.
Fantastic stuff. Here's my one and only, and I'll tell you this, I had to workshop it because versions of it were taken, but I settled on, I wanted to do donutliquor@gmail.com, but that is
how did I miss donut liquor?
Disturbingly
that
taken.
Was right there.
So I got lickingthedonut@gmail.com.
That's very good.
Do you like that?
I think we have to go with lickingthedonut@gmail.com.
Right. It's lickingthedonut@gmail. Thank you, Rob, for letting me have this. I appreciate it.
I am slightly terrified to see what emails we receive at lickingthedonut@gmail.com, but that's part of the fun, Joe.
That is the risk you take. I want to hear, however, from donutliquor@gmail.com. Who are you? There were several iterations that I had to go through. So like this theme of licking donuts has been taken by several Gmail users. I'm curious if they're related to Pluribus or this is a long established I love to lick donuts sort of things. Anyway,
if you're out there and squatting on it, I will pay $5 for donutliquor@gmail.com.
I'll throw it another $5. That's
you
$10
know what? That's a match right there. Let's get a GoFundMe going for donutliquor@gmail.com.
But in the meantime, lickingthedonut@gmail.com is, and not licking donuts. Licking the singular donut@gmail.com is
diabolical, Joe.
Phrasingly what we have here for this particular podcast. Okay, to go back to the others versus old school, or please send your other suggestions to us at lickingthedonut@gmail.com. Something they talked about on the official pod that I really was fascinated by. First of all, they hired a choreographer to work with all the background, actors in all of these scenes.
I love that.
And at first, they had everyone moving exactly the same and speaking in precise unison. And they decided that the effect was too creepy, that they're not trying to go for like that creepy. We do get some like Children of the Corn energy from the neighbor kids and stuff like that. But for the most part, they were really trying to calibrate. And Vince Gilligan said things on the pod like, we still don't know what makes the others tick or other things like that, which is classic Gilligan. Like, I haven't figured it out yet. I'll figure it out. But calibrating the level of the smile, that's something they talked about a lot. Like, they were like, how do we convey pleasant and not menacing? And so not overtly menacing, but still disquieting to us at home. Do you know what I mean? Quite. Like that sort of thing is something they really, really worked to get exactly right. And especially with Carolina, who plays Zosia, like that is something that, you know, and I think she's fantastic. She shows really up in episode 2, really, really good. But she has to really nail it because she's the one who's going to be here and has to be like aggravating to Carol, but also someone that Carol will run and stand in front of Air Force One for by the end of episode 2. You know what I mean?
I can tell that they got that calibration right just based on my like physical response to watching these episodes. Like, well, there are those like Children of the Corn moments and the synergy of just like the slow walking of all of these extras in the background. And I think one of the joys of the first episode in particular is as everything is going to absolute shit, including when everyone is just kind of seizing, watching everything that is happening in the background. Like all of the, you know, these singers who are frozen in place and the band members and the waitresses and the people in the hospital waiting room. It's like everyone is so perfectly mid something. And in a way that is kind of frozen in time, but obviously not, and incredibly eerie. And then once they do start moving in unison, it is unsettling. And yet, like intellectually, I do go through the paces with these 2 episodes of being like, you know what, does the virus have a point? Like, I wouldn't say we had a good run as a species, but we did have a run. I don't know that we made the best of it at all times. Like, this is where I come down to with this show and why I'm so impressed with like where and when it is happening. Everything right now in real life is so fundamentally broken that I am very open to the virus's pitch.
Okay, your team Lakshmi. Your team, like, Carol, stop ruining it for the rest of us, sort of thing.
I'm just saying, I'm here for the presentation. I'm not buying the timeshare yet, but I'm open.
Okay, so this feeds into the next thing I want to ask, which is, what is this show about? You know, and I've seen a lot of people wonder how much this show is about artificial intelligence, the way in which Zosia and the rest of them have access to all this information, can kind of scrape information and sort of feed it back to you in the sort of like most pleasant, ingratiating way that they could possibly. How can I help you? How can I be of service to you? I have access to all the information in the world, and how can I do this for you? But also, did we get this wrong? Did we, in literally trying to serve your needs, mess this up somehow? Or what are the fundamental ways in which this is not the human experience? Like, I was thinking specifically in episode 2, when we get the contrast of when we first see Zosia in Morocco, she's wandering out of, you know, grubby and wandering out of, you know, not the desert, but sort of the countryside, to pull a crisp burned body out of a car. And a guy rolls up in a bakery truck with a burlap sort of body bag. So there's that approach. And then there's Carol finding a quilt and lovingly wrapping Helen up in a quilt that means something to both of them. That is like sort of the human, emotionally connective experience. And so there's this sort of like pleasant, solicitous, we're here to remove the bodies. We do want to remove the bodies. The bodies are unpleasant. We want to remove them, but we're not going to we're not callously tossing them around, but we're not going to lovingly take care of them the way that a human would. So
completely,
you know, and Vince Gilligan has talked in various interviews around the show about, not about this is a show about AI, but about how he specifically is like in a very anti-AI headspace right now, as I think are most original thinkers. So how does that AI metaphor work for you? What are you thinking about that?
You know, I hadn't put it in those terms for myself, but now that you're explaining it, it makes a lot of sense. And I think one of the sort of philosophical things that I was left with after these 2 episodes is a life without friction really life?
Right.
You know, like if everything, like there is an appeal to the, like, there's an easier way to do this proposal that Zosia comes with of like, we're just going to airdrop a crane into your backyard, an excavator to your backyard. And it's good. Like all that pickaxing you've been doing, like you didn't need to do that. It could have been this easy the whole time. But without the friction, without the creative process, without the labor, without the love, like you don't get that moment with the quilt.
Yeah.
Where like and Ray Seahorn's so great in these episodes, and like her taking the beat to like smell the quilt before she uses it to wrap her friend is heartbreaking stuff. And that's heartbreaking stuff from a character who it's kind of hard to be on Carol's side a lot.
Can I just say really quickly, her wife, I believe, just,
Oh, is it her wife?
Yeah.
Oh, see, I wasn't sure if it was like a more of a business relationship.
No, there's like a wedding photo of them next to the phone at one point. So
I'm negligent in my duties as a freeze framer, Joe. Thank you for correcting me.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you don't get any of that if you are just optimizing. And so like this fundamental tension between what is human and what is efficient, I think is kind of part of where the show starts butting heads. But I love that AI comparison. I just had never really contextualized it in that way. I
really agree with you in that, like, if it's too easy, if you're not sweating and getting grubby and to dig the grave, are you really engaged in this human moment of mourning? At the same time, and this is what I like, there are no easy answers. Mm-hmm. The fact that Zosia's like, you don't have to do this by yourself.
Yes.
When Carol is such a stubbornly independent person, you know what I mean? Like, or maybe that's unfair to Carol because she is trying to form community with the other English speaking of the remained, you know what I mean? Not well, but but this idea of like, I don't need anyone or anything. I can do this myself.
Yes. Versus
accepting help when you need help. Like, I think there is a lesson for Carol to learn there as well.
Oh, many.
But can you do that while holding on to what makes a human sort of thing? So,
see, this is why for me, in terms of like the what is the show about, my brain went to this is pointed right at like the these divided times sort of rhetoric and cliche. It's like, what if we weren't divided at all? Like, what if we were completely unified in functioning as a collective species? Like, what does that mean? What does that look like? Like, what is the polar opposite of division? And is there anything even remotely human in that kind of universal agreement?
I love that. I think that, so that tribalism idea, the us versus them, right? We get that very clearly here. But except for, the other old school people that Carol meets with are like, well, we have family members who are part of the others. So for us, it's different. You're all alone. You had one person. She's dead. You're a slightly unpleasant person. Carol is a slightly unpleasant person. That's
She's not
like
great
by design, And so you had your one person. Your one person is gone because there were adoring masses who wanted to have connections with Carol, and she sort of held them at bay, right? Because she's just sort of like rolling her eyes at them. So there was like people wanting to be in community with Carol already, her readers. But she had her one person. Her one person's gone, and so she's like, "Oh, it's an us versus them." And then the other people are like, "It's the us is them. That these are our family members. How sad for you that you don't have any family members here to show up with you. Like that's tough." And that goes back to the Leftovers comp when you have a character like Carrie Coon's character Nora, whose entire family disappeared in the event that instigates the Leftovers, versus other people lost some people but not everyone. And so completely. I think that's a really interesting thing.
It puts you in a totally different kind of purgatory, right? Like if you are that isolated within a world that is already so isolated. But I love to kind of like thread these ideas together, Joe. Like you bring up earlier, the sort of like gender swapping in the script of this initial, or the idea of this initially being a male character. And yes, we've made Carol a woman, but she also exercises a kind of like I Dream of Jeannie wish fulfillment professionally, like anchoring this in like a romantasy author who is catering to the whims of these women who she like has a lot of contempt for.
Yeah.
It's just like such an interesting place to start this story, and then have that character have to interrogate what it means to have her own wishes fulfilled, and if she even wants any of that, and if she wants to be a part of any of this with any of these quote unquote people.
I love that. It's interesting. I was talking to someone who had watched the episodes before they came out, and he was asking me, like, do you think the romantasy contingent will be offended by the way in which they are sort of portrayed in this episode? And I was like, I don't know. I think Carol is very clearly like, I think Helen is the voice of reason. You're bringing pleasure and happiness to these people.
Yes.
That's not a bad thing to do.
That line has to come back, right? Like if you can make one person
yeah.
happy concept, that feels like it's spiritually going to be a part of this show.
Absolutely. So I just think that, like, I think Carol is sort of being positioned as being in the wrong there. Though the comedy of the book signing was
very
like,
funny.
Genuinely great. The guy with his like rapier, actualing like the schooners and all that sort of stuff was really, really fun.
But that's how you get to have it both ways. Like, you get the comedy and then you get back to the car and it's like, oh, like, this woman is terrible in her treatment of, like, she's putting on this facade, but like, this is what she really thinks of them. And then you have incredible empathy for even the guy with the rapier.
Yeah. To go back to your in these divided times point, I think that's really interesting. And I think that, like, what is the danger? It goes back to this idea of tribalism, which came up a lot in The Last of Us. Who is the us inside of this?
Sure.
And the fact that, like, when Helen collapses, Carol's entire purpose from then on out is just sort of like, how do I help Helen? Right? She's not, how do I help anyone in this bar? She's just sort of like, I need to get this one person help. And that
not
is
only, Joe, is she like, how do I help people in this bar? She's bowling over people in the bar. She's running over people in the waiting room with the stretcher. It's like, these people basically don't exist to her.
She does say sorry, but it's I
guess.
But yeah, that sort of like, where do you circle the wagons? And also, like, can you be an us of one? Like, you can't, like, the way that episode 2 ends with her running after Zosha, someone who she resents and all these other, and yes, they have handpicked the person who's most likely to appeal to her.
It's so gross.
Physically.
It's so gross.
Like, all of that. But also just this idea of, like, she needs someone to talk to. Not just for us viewers at home, but, you know, just in general, like, she can't navigate this alone, so she might as well have this person with her, and it doesn't hurt that person looks like her physical ideal of a person, but, you know, here we are.
Or at least her physical idea of a space pirate.
There you go. Also, shots fired at Brandon Sanderson, I gotta say, because a ship that runs on colored sand is the premise of Trust of the Emerald Sea, and I was like, is that a Brando Sando direct hit?
Did you sense a parallel? I was very curious if this was like a thing that people would have the call out for that I don't understand. When we do the book swap at the airport,
like Diana Gabaldon.
The Diana Gabaldon text. Like, is that a reference I should know or could know?
As Outlander, so I mean, you know Outlander, right? Time traveling romance.
I didn't even realize what the subtext of that might be.
I mean, what I will say is that Diana Gabaldon's Outlander series is like, not the first romantasy, but like, also she insists it's shelved in fiction, not Diana Gabaldon's a very interesting person. But anyway, that's like, gosh, what's the comp? What's the comp in like the sci-fi section? Like moving Michael Crichton out of the way for your book or something like that.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that's a very dusty reference, Michael Crichton. But there we are. Okay, so back to the COVID idea, which was something that our pal Miles wrote in his review on theringer.com. What a great website. Isolated, locked in your house, nobody's around. Does any of that strike you as specifically COVID or specifically interesting to you?
A little bit. I think the part that struck me as COVID is the same part that, I wanted to talk about, like, where does the money show up in this show? And for me, it is the empty space. It is like, we cleared this area the fuck out. And we like, not just are like descending on a set to shoot there, but it's like, it has that 28 days later kind of feel of like, where are the people? Yeah. And then they're all in their houses coming out in unison in a way that is like terrifying. Again, another thing that's kind of in the ether and in the air with this show is like, you get a lot of like Stepford Wives. Oh, yeah. And some of that is because it is suburban, and some of it is like the killing with like kindness and compliance for like very suburban kind of conformity that is happening with this group. But ultimately for me, like, that's where it felt most COVID coded, was just like looking out on a street that you're used to seeing full of life and people, and there's just nothing there because it's been meticulously scrubbed clean by all of these people who are picking up the bodies and moving the cars and putting out the fires. Like, they're all perfectly good little worker bees, but the result of that is something that doesn't much resemble normal human life anymore.
Where do you think they sleep? And do you think they sleep?
No, like, they don't.
They don't sleep. They just keep working.
They like Donald Gleason style, or just like eyes open in a closet somewhere,
This is something that we're going to check in with every week. I decided and Rob agreed, which is that this show has a $15 million budget per episode, which is not as big as like Thrones or something like that, but
no, but it's a lot.
It's massive.
Yes.
And so the question we want to ask ourselves every week, and I think we could do both episodes here, pick your moment. Like, what is the moment where you looked at this and you said, is it the empty streets? This cost $15 million.
Maybe it was trick. I'm sure this is like a trick of cinematography too, but even seeing like the planes simultaneously pull up to 5 consecutive gates, like I'm sure that is a trick or an effect of some kind, but I'm like,
here's what I
don't know. This feels expensive to me.
Planes was initially my answer. And then I have another answer, but listening to them talk about the podcast, here's what I know. The C-130, which is the plane that Zoja flies from Tangier to Albuquerque.
The big old cargo plane.
Was a plane that they flew in from Malaysia. So that's a real plane that they got. Wow. She, Carolina, who plays Zoja, learned how to taxi the plane, not fly it, but taxi it. So that is actually her in the plane on the like tarmac of the Albuquerque airport, like taxiing the plane. So that's one thing. I don't remember if they talked about the other planes all sort of landing together. But as for Air Force One, they built that.
Crazy.
So they built not a whole plane. I think when she's standing in front of the nose, that's digital effect.
That looked like an effect, right, for sure.
But in terms of, and this is what we're talking about in terms of like seeing the money on the screen. Vince Gilligan wanted, they're all on the ground. They see it sort of roll into frame. He wanted that. The production designer was talking about how usually when you do something like this, you just have to build the door and we can go from there. Vince Gilligan wanted the whole thing. So they built this enormous metal. It's like a facade. It's like a metal facade front that has set built into it so they can walk up the stairs onto set. But like a metal facade. So it's like, they were talking about the Albuquerque winds because it's just like sheet metal, like flat sheet metal because it's just one side of the plane like rolling into view and stuff like that. So, but that's astounding. But here's what
looks amazing.
Here's what's even more astounding, Rob. This is where I think I would put I can tell this cost $15 million. They built that entire cul-de-sac from scratch.
Wow.
They built houses. I mean, I'm not saying those houses are full or furnished, but
sure.
They built houses, they poured concrete, they bought some land, and they built houses on that land so that they could film there and do whatever they wanted there. I mean, I think Vince Gilligan is still scarred from like the Breaking Bad house becoming this like national monument that people like
throw pizzas on the roof of.
So he's like, we wanted to do whatever we wanted to do on the street there, so we just built this entire cul-de-sac. Yeah. That's if you go rewatch those episodes and look at those houses, which are like, they're not tract housing, they're like intricate, interesting houses that they built from scratch on this street. Astonishing stuff.
That's like some Deadwood level production happening.
Yeah. Really good stuff. Anything else you want to talk about in a big picture way before we maybe go through some of the episode stuff?
Maybe let's iron out just like the nuts and bolts of what exactly happened in terms of the invasion itself. Like I want to make sure we're all on the same page, namely me, and in particular the one jump, right? Because we get the information that like this message has been transmitted through the cosmos. They're trying to figure out what it is. It's clearly like this formula for an RNA strand that is then tested on the rat among other animals, which I guess like fakes its own death, goes rat playing possum to get out of the cage to then bite a person.
Is that what it does? I thought it was sort of like, it's the sort of like everyone's frozen version of like the rat version of everyone's frozen. Do you know
you think it was having a little mini rat seizure?
Yeah. Maybe.
It's adorable and very sad. See, I thought it was doing it on purpose to get, because the only way it could spread would be to get out.
Oh, interesting.
And if it is that cunning, that I have questions about, the nature of this virus and what it is trying to do. But clearly it needs to spread. It needs to, bite the nearest hand and then make out with somebody and then lick a donut.
Yeah.
And then clearly the plan is accelerated by, we learn or are told, like, quote unquote, the military has found out about the spread of some issue or this virus. One of my favorite bits of choreography are like the 8 simultaneous jet stream jets flying overhead, which is this the mechanism that is leading everyone else who has not been licked or kissed? All the people, Helen, all the people in the restaurant, like, is that what is ultimately triggering them to join the others?
I don't know, but I had that question too. Like, is that actually just indicative of people are flying the plane in concert? Like, you don't see chemtrails like that because you don't usually have planes flying in formation like that outside of when the Blue Angels come to San Francisco. But like, so is it that, or is there something? I mean, chemtrails is just sort of feeding right into the QAnon folks. So perhaps, but I think I don't know, because it hits everyone at once, like everyone in that bar. But my thought about the bar was sort of like, was it in everyone's drink or something like that? But it hits them all simultaneously. So is it sort of dropped somehow from the chemtrails? And if so, like, what's the smooch version of that? Like, is it like droplets? Like, how do you do that?
It's gotta be droplet. The droplets per smooch are obviously off the charts, but the droplets by airdrop from chemtrail, much more complicated.
Okay, lickingthedonut@gmail.com if you are working infectious diseases and you know how this might work. But yeah, I really love the opening. We get this sort of like Contact-esque sequence, right? With first we've got the astronomers, and I love the comedy of like, it's two guys and then it's like a group of people, and then it's like, the guys playing
all the cars and trucks piling up outside as people come to check it out.
Alan McLeod, who plays like the first guy, who is a real that guy for me from You're the Worst.
Definitely.
And then in the U.S. Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases, which is MRID, I think is how you pronounce that acronym.
I buy it.
Don't know. Karen Sony, who plays like the other guy in the lab, who like then sort of waltzes down the stairs to smooch the janitor. Another like actor I always love to see. And I just really loved his like whimsical approach to assaulting and assimilating the janitor here.
Well, see, that one is assaulted, but then we already know that just like as a species, we are vulnerable to, I mean, a species level alien invasion, an under the skin type of alien invasion. My main question was the speed at which we go from assaulting one janitor to now an entire squadron of military police have been smooched and brought in to swab and box. Like, I think our smooch defenses just leave a lot to be desired.
I think that's true. Or do you think they were offered donuts? That's a question.
My God. You just walk around with the donut. I mean, who among us? Simply, I would be incredibly susceptible.
Be careful. Look for glistening saliva on your donuts from now on. It's not always glazed. Sometimes it's infectious diseases. Okay. Any part of what we should talk about here in terms of like this moving through various scientific disciplines into the outbreak is we have this clock that I'm actually a little confused by, because it's counting down. It feels like it counts down.
Yes.
And then it counts back up.
Right.
So, which is fine, right? We go to like 0 hour when everyone except for the 12 are infected.
The takeover moment.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the after. I'm just a little surprised there isn't like a BCE, like, like before or after, or like it's a different color or like something like that. I was just like, I guess now we're going back up. But I
think the thing that confused me about that was that, as Zoja tells it, like this wasn't the exact plan. So it's not like, the hive mind itself had the countdown clock of like, we are all working to this time to take over. It's like, oh no, we had to jump our process by 8 different steps, which that is kind of confusing from a countdown perspective.
We've already talked about the book signing scene. I don't think there's anything else. Anything you want to say about this sort of like, shout out Bitter Chrysalis, by the way, as like a name of an unpublished novel. Great stuff.
Your very serious novel that you're terrified to actually publish.
When Helen says, talking about Finnegan's Wake, I tried it in grad school. It's probably great. Very good stuff.
This is how I feel about most fiction, Joe. It's probably great, I'm sure. It's good for you.
Rob, don't remind me of your one flaw. Okay, so like we go through all of that and then the outbreak. So anything you want to say about this outbreak sequence?
I mean, I think it's incredibly thrilling television. The moment in which Carol gets clear of the initial bar and is trying to get to the hospital, and you have the overlook moment of seeing Albuquerque in flames, like a legit goosebump situation for me, of just like that kind of zoom out, I think plays perfectly there, of like we know instinctively that it's obviously not just this bar, like there's going to be wider implications, but seeing just how fast everything has gone to shit and how isolated Carol already clearly is. You know, you have that, you have all of these slow moving extras in the background, you have the jet streams, even just like the very particular way that the cop car has flipped over in the middle of the road, like almost on its side, pinning someone underneath. Like there's just something so evocative about so many of the visuals in these first 2 episodes, specifically in this takeover before the cleanup really comes in full force.
I also think it's really interesting. We get a couple moments here in the escape that sort of flipped. I think it's an ambulance. It might be a cop car. But anyways, it's something like where when she first hears the siren and sees the light, she goes, "Oh, thank God." Sort of like,
I think that's the cop car.
Rescue is here. And then it's like, oh no, that's not going to help me. Oh no, this Dr. Nguyen's not going to help me. In fact, he's going to try to smooch me.
I mean, this ain't to pit, Joe. You know?
And a reference I now get. And then fuck yeah, like God Bless America when she turns on the TV and she thinks someone authoritative is there to help her. So like all these moments of like someone will come, someone official. The system is here to come help me and save me. And the escalating realization that none of those infrastructures are in place anymore. And in fact, they all belong to the other side. So what do you have now? Only their do no harm sort of
they're very insistent.
Yeah, exactly. So
you know what, if you have to tell people what we're doing, we promise is the antithesis of slavery, I don't know, if you have to make that pitch, it's not great.
It's really tough.
I do want to give a special shout out, Joe, to whichever pod person over at C-SPAN is updating the chyrons for the broadcast. The "your life is your own, we are one" cycle. I have just laughed every time it changed.
We Are Not Aliens was just like creme de la creme. Really, really good. And the actor playing that
tremendous.
Really good stuff. So I want to note something else. In her escape after the hospital, the camera's on her and we're seeing her react to things, but we don't get to see what she's reacting to until it's in her rear view. We see it out the back, which I thought was really cool and unusual. And this is where sort of a topic I thought we might do every week is like tiny detail you loved or something like that. I'm going to go with the person being helped into a car who's missing part of their leg. And then someone running up with the leg helpfully afterwards to like get in the car. Like she has missing part of her leg and he's like, "Here's the leg. I have it," is like pretty top tier visual gag in the background.
The background stuff in this show is so good. And yeah, that's another area in which like a lot of TV, even high budget TV, there's just like there is nothing happening in the background of screens. It's so static. Like this feels like a world that is constantly shifting in, again, like a very alien sort of way that is alarming and is unusually helpful and compliant in a way that I think puts a twist on that whole formula. Like we have seen these movies, we have seen these stories. I don't know that I've seen one that's quite this helpful before, that is like so insistent on like, please let us service your every need, as you alluded to with the premise. Like it gives this basic idea a totally different kind of life.
I love that. Anything else you want to say about this sort of like escape to the house and maybe anything else in episode 1? Well, here's something I want to say. A little detail we get in the pre-pan is the breathalyzer on Carol's Range Rover. That is not a default thing you can get on a Range Rover. That is ignition interlock devices required after a DUI conviction, usually. So just a detail we get about Carol. We see this is something I also want to start tracking, which is alcohol consumption, because like who among us would not wake up on the floor with a dripping whiskey bottle in episode 2 or guzzle a lot of Chablis or whatever it is that she is enjoying. That's another place where the budget is evident. They like actually went to Basque Country for that sequence where they're outside.
I mean, why not, frankly?
They're like, we saw Succession do it. We're just going to globetrot if we want to.
Hell yeah.
So enjoy your vacation, Vince Gilligan. You've earned it. But Carol had a drinking problem before this. And so that's just something to know about her character, which is interesting.
I mean, she has this drinking problem. Even separate from it, she's incredibly self-absorbed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, it is called out in this episode in a way that, honestly, I'm a little on her side about like, maybe you don't ask the drug dealer about the heroin pitch.
Yes.
That part makes sense.
Yeah.
But she is not someone who has a lot of questions or interest in other people other than Helen. You know, as you mentioned, Joe, like her us has been ripped from us. Or ripped from her.
Yeah.
And all that she's left with is everything that's bouncing around in her head, this kind of contempt she has for the rest of the world. And yet she's the one trying to save the world. It's such a great juxtaposition for that character.
I love that. I think that's another thing that I'm really interested in terms of like who Carol is. Something that they said on the official pod is she's the kind of person where even if she's enjoying something, she has to make it negative, right? This is something that Helen calls her out for, where it's like, oh, poor you, how horrible to be surrounded by adoring people who give you a lot of money. You know, she's like, book tours are hell, and she's like, oh, poor you. So, yeah, like,
you get to go on a book tour in 2025, ma'am. That's pretty good.
So I think that like this natural tendency she has to yuck her own yum, like that pre-exists this idea of this psychology of like, and you know, Vince Gilligan has talked about this in interviews where he's like, he is famously like one of the most genial people that has, you know, if you've ever heard him talk, if you've ever talked to him or whatever it is, he's just got this very aw shucks accent. You know, he is constantly giving credit away to other people. Like he's just like a very, very genial guy. And in interviews, he's like, actually, I'm quite dark when I'm on my own, you know? So like this something that he said about this show is that he was tired of writing bad guys. And in these divided times, Rob, he wanted to write a good guy. So he sees Carol as a good guy. And I think we all do, maybe. Lakshmi certainly doesn't.
Sure.
But also a good guy that like reflects his inner darkness, I guess. I don't know. I think that's interesting.
Well, I mean, like a true author, he's reflected by all of these aspects. Like the genial part of him is Zosha, right? Like there is a part of all of us that is like wanting to be helpful and compliant. And some of us service that part and some of us quiet that part. It just like depends on what you want to channel into. But that to me is kind of the fundamental tension of the show. I mean, we talked about this overarching, like, just a way of thinking that has now descended upon the earth and is surrounding Carol and these other like survivors, basically. And it's like that part of thinking is not human, but is also maybe in the best interest of humans. And one thing I also kept coming back to with this show is like the pitch from these like infected people is not like drastically different from the pitch that we ultimately get to in a movie like Arrival, for example, which is like we want to fundamentally alter something about the human experience in a way that in this moment you need to survive. And maybe that is true for us. Maybe it's not true for us, but we're just kind of pushed and pulled through them. And Carol, God knows, is pushed and pulled through them. What
do you make of the increasing lore info that we get in episode 2 that Carol's negative outbursts have these global death toll ramifications?
I mean, real like, you're not allowed to be angry at me. Like, again, just like a very insidious form of control that I think is echoed in, you know, creating or like bringing this woman who, as you said, is like the closest approximation of the love interest she almost created for her own novel. There's all of these aspects in which, even if the intentions of this virus are pure, which who's to say, the way in which it's going about it's incredibly manipulative.
Yeah.
And incredibly manipulative in a way that it just like activates that like very allergic reaction in you as a human, where you feel like your free will is being slowly stripped away. Like, I'm not allowed to yell. And yet another moment where I thought Rhea Seehorn was just incredible. It's like her first explosive outburst, Carol's at Zosha, in which she yells, and then she as a character has that moment of like, I don't know how these people will respond to this. Like, she is waiting for like the pushback, and then it's just a full-on collapse.
Yeah.
In a way that, again, like, it's hard to watch these first 2 episodes and not feel like these characters, even as they're being told, we will give you anything you want, we will take you anywhere you want, we will provide for your every need, but you just feel the box being closed around them.
Well, and there's the seduction of that frictionless life. You can have anything you want, but now you kind of belong to us. Or you're distracted, you know, talking about it's going to take us some time to figure out how to fix you. So there's a clock on that, right? Where Carol's
It's not
like,
something someone wants to hear,
right,
you know?
right. And these other people are distracted by, we can go to the Guggenheim. We can go,
Yes.
we can go to Vegas. We can plow as many supermodels as we want. Like, all this sort of like distracted.
Shout out to the harem,
distracted by these pleasures that are provided to them by these this benevolent quote unquote force. And Carol's the only one. Carol and it seems like perhaps one other on the other side of the phone call, like is committed to rejecting this,
Sure.
Which I think is interesting. But the person that she calls, the one other English language speaker that she calls, he seems like he's like one more degree removed, because he's not even like wanting to find common cause with the other survived, unless he like doesn't believe, thinks he's being lied to. I don't know. That's interesting to me. That's an interesting little seed to plant,
How could you not, in light of everything else that is happening, not think you are being lied to in some way? Even if it's just by little bits of omission, right? Like they don't want to tell Carol that she killed, I say she killed, they killed millions of people through the specifics and logistics of their takeover, and her not being allowed to raise her voice a single time.
I love that. I wanted to ask you about that, because Zosia, all of them, but like Zosia's are the most time we spend with someone who's like this. There is this almost, is there any sort of individualism left in the us? Is there something in Zosia that's different from the chick from TGI Fridays who's flying the plane? You know what I mean? Like there is.
She's very good at all her jobs.
there is we all have access to the same expertise. We're all the best at everything that we do. We all have the muscle memory of what it means to perform open heart surgery or whatever it is. But is Zosia, I think this is a question that the show wants to ask, is Zosia capable of like forming an attachment to Carol? Like, like some of her reactions, there is the "we care that you're okay" Carol sort of like blanket mantra, but is there room for a character like Zosia to have like an individual affinity for Carol? You know what I mean? That's something I'm interested to watch.
I mean, can you have any choice at all if you are only working in service of humanity as a whole?
Right.
Like, I think the answer to that fundamentally, like on a black and white level, is no. And it's why like someone like Carol would push so strongly. And not only is it good that Carol has all of the flaws that she has as a human being, but also very fitting that she's an American who's pushing back against this idea. It's like we are the most resistant to any kind of communal responsibility. And so the fact that she would give up everything that makes her her just would never happen in a million years for a character like that. I think as far as will be been presented so far, the answer would suggest no, but because this is a TV show, I think maybe we'll see a little daylight there. And certainly, I think if you are somebody like Kumba, for example, he sees something in Zosia. He sees many things in Zosia, and that he would like to be in Zosia, but I don't know that he's entirely right about it.
I love that. Anything else you want to mention specifically in episode 2 that happens that felt particularly striking to you?
I do have something, Joe.
Yeah.
And we've actually already gotten an email, so I'm going to raid the inbox for an email we got from Sarah flagging Chekhov's nuclear football.
Oh, yes.
Pops up on Air Force One.
Very good.
Anything that could change the fate of the world, you want to have that kind of heft to it. So I'm glad it has its moment. I'm glad we're introduced to it. But as we're talking about big global solutions, I kind of am with Sarah that I think this might come back into play.
Are you really excited that Kumba is the one who has control of it?
I mean, he at minimum seems to know the plot of Air Force One in and out.
That's
so he's up on, I would say, current events, but at least on pop culture.
Some films. All right. Anything else you want to mention? We have a couple other sort of like categories you want to get to.
I mean, just one really important thing, Joe. On hands and knees he scrubbed, his sinewy forearms stretched taut as he washed away all trace of the day's fight. With a languid nod, Lucretia bade him to follow her to her cabin. Little did this callow deckhand know that serving at his captain's pleasure might take on this sweet meaning. That's it. That's all I got for you.
That's one for the listeners. Thank you, Rob. All right. Let's talk about most sort of Gilligan version. So Vince Gilligan directed the first 2 episodes. He's not directing every episode this season. So I wanted to call it like the Gilligan shot. But famously, if you were not watching Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, I'll let you know that like the cameras inside of those shows increasingly found unusual ways to shoot things up through the bottom of a glass table.
Yes.
Famously, et cetera, et cetera. So what is the most sort of like Gilligan-esque shot in these first 2 episodes?
I'm torn between 2.
Okay.
So I'm gonna try to steal an extra one in here. The shot of Carol returning to the bar, seeing the glass, like the glasses of beer on the waitress's tray shaking.
Yeah.
That perspective shot, I think, is like absolutely gorgeous stuff. It's so great in that moment as we're all trying to get our bearings together.
With the audio of the singer, like just breathing into the microphone. Very good.
Grunting into the microphone. Everyone kind of struggling to stay upright. But it's also hard not to pick the camera attached to the crane as Carol drags a dude across the side of a building while trying to save him. Wonderful.
Very good. Very good.
Really wonderful.
I love all that. I do think in terms of like pandemic outbreak stuff, I think the first infected, the fact that she's like in soft focus behind her fellow scientist and she's at the sort of sink that's full of water. So you hear like that, you see her shaking and you hear the splashing. That's very good. But that's not the one that is more Gilligan-esque to me is episode 2 opens on after some of the Zosha stuff. We get tight in on the whiskey dripping slowly out of the neck of the whiskey bottle as we pan out, and then we see Carol's on the floor and Helen's also on the floor. But like that just like we're in so close and tight on the neck of the bottle, and then we build out from there. It was just like he loves an extreme close-up of an object.
He does.
He really does.
But this show lends itself to it so well. Obviously, like, someone would create the show that serves their sensibilities. But in terms of Vince Gilligan's like directorial style and visual flair, the combination of the very precise choreography that's happening with all of these people working wordlessly in unison, like the Zosha handoff that opens episode 2, you talked about it, of, truck to motorbike to plane to landing to getting in the shower as someone prepares your mate. It's like all of that choreography, I think, is so in his bag. And at the same time, the fact that this is a world where at any moment something could be left teetering on an edge because somebody went into a seizure. It's like that object, whatever got left, whatever fell over.
Yeah.
It's just begging for these kinds of shots.
I really agree with that. I also in that the shower waiting for Zosha moment, I found, there's the opening of the makeup palette, which is just like a beautiful, I've never seen something like that, but this like eyeshadow flower thing, that's like incredible. But someone is like curling the extensions were so insidious to me, of like the attention to detail of like, we need her hair to be longer in order to maximize appeal is just like,
well, she's got to be ready for a romantasy cover.
Really tough.
Like if it can't flow in the wind, is it even worth it?
Hot pirate lady, gotta love it. Okay, the other, I will mention the shot that Vince Gilligan himself mentioned, which is the introduction of Ray Seahorn, where he calls it a slider. I confess I don't know exactly what that is and how it is different from a tracking shot, but you slide across the crowd and you get the back of her head. And he called it wanting to give her a movie star entrance. And Ray Seahorn on the podcast was like, but you don't see my face. And he's like, yeah, that's how we meet Indiana Jones. He's like, that's a really cool thing to do. He's like, you just don't like, we wait to show them the face. And he's like, but you know that this is the person. And then Ray Seahorn was talking about how what she loves about that shot is, if you did not watch Better Call Saul, Ray Seahorn, incredible on that show. Her character, Kim Wexler, was like very famous for this ponytail, the Kim Wexler ponytail. And so the fact that you like open on the back of her head and it's like, this ain't your Kim Wexler. The ponytail is gone. It's someone else here.
The ponytail days are well and truly over,
true.
Joe.
It's true. All right. Another category we're going to do is most grade. I'm changing it to most grating smile. That's what I've decided to call it. Specifically because I originally called it most punchable smile, but my nomination is one of the kids. And so I just feel a little like weird about saying punchable. So I would say small male child helping with the key is,
he was so helpful
is
though.
My most grating smile. Do you have a nomination, Rob?
See, I thought this was going to be unanimous. I thought there was not going to be any conflict at all. I think it has to be Davis Taffler, the Undersecretary of Agricultural Farm Production and Conservation. Like that smile is plastered on in a way that demands to be punched.
I love him. I think they said that's a soap opera actor, and like it's perfect.
It is.
It's like perfect. I love that. And then last but not least, and this is something that this category kind of reminds me of when we were asking people during Severance, like, what would you sever? I think this is a good prompt for our listeners. So please recall lickingthedonut@gmail.com is where you can reach us. Rob, what would you do or where would you go if the hive mind was at your beck and call?
Thank you for asking me this, Joe.
You're welcome.
It really sent me down a rabbit hole
Did it?
because I would say the premise of this show invites what, to me, I personally call, based on personal experience, the time crisis problem. Are you familiar with the arcade video game Time Crisis?
No.
It's a classic, like, you have a little plastic gun, you point it at the screen, you shoot the guys kind of game. I once went to a video arcade where it was like they had unlocked all the games are free.
Yeah.
And you would never believe how fast the life is drained out of that game when there are no stakes or consequences for dying. It's like you could sit and play this game for, a solid 30 minutes pumping quarters into it, but as soon as you don't have to pump the quarters in, is any of it fun anymore?
I love that.
And I think there is part of that in a world like this where it's like if there's no cost, does it mean anything? If there's no scarcity, does it feel special at all? And I think most importantly, if you are alone,
if you can't share it with someone,
does it register with you at all in any meaningful way?
Yeah. Do you have an answer?
I do have an answer. Sorry, that was a lot of
No.
preamble.
But I like the preamble a lot, and I think especially your point of if you don't have someone to share it with, like, does it hit? Yeah.
So because I don't have those things, my brain went to two places. One, should I try to go somewhere that I wouldn't ordinarily be able to go? Everywhere kind of felt like a version of the same thing. Like, yeah, I could go to a nicer beach than the beaches I've been to, but they would be disconcertingly empty, and I would be a little distraught at that. So I came back to, very tangible delights. I would have a series of, the infected's finest chefs
I knew it.
with all of the culinary knowledge on the planet prepare for me a series of meals that would draw not only from the best things I've ever eaten, as they try to do for Carol, but also the best things I've never tasted. And I think this is kind of one of the problems with living in this world is like, to the AI of it all, they are trying to algorithmically engineer the woman of your dreams and the meal that you wanted. But it's like, I also need to invite a little bit of like ingenuity in this. Like, how do we shake up the formula to the point that I can be surprised by what they are doing?
Well, here's my question. So you're like, gather the world-class chefs, but if everyone has the same information,
that's what I'm saying.
Anyone can do it, right?
Absolutely.
Your assigned Zosha could cook this meal for you. Okay.
Zosha has a mastery of every cuisine across the world.
Okay.
Like, you don't have to go very far.
Okay. I knew your answer would be some sort of elaborate meal, and I think
I am
really
who I
good.
am.
I feel like in terms of, I think you're right about like, I don't necessarily want to go to an empty beach, but like, maybe I want to go to the top of Everest.
Okay.
Like maybe that's where I want to go and just sort of like look on my works, you mighty in despair, myself at the top of it, and then call it a day. I don't know, just somewhere I could never get myself.
But Joe, you could go there right now if you wanted.
How can I go to the top of Everest?
You can climb.
I don't know that I can, but thank you so much for your faith in me.
Can they like hella drop you to the top of Everest? Is that a thing that can happen?
No, I don't think you can. Maybe if you're like Elon Musk, you can, but I think you have to at least start at some sort of base camp and like hike your ass up there.
Well, so how are you getting there in this world?
Well, in this world, I do get hella dropped at the top.
You do have hella drop privileges.
I do. I am the Elon Musk. Chilling thought. Or maybe let's musk it up and go to space. Why not?
See, I have no interest in space.
No interest
Keep
in
me
space?
out of there, please.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay. I want a view. I want a view that I would not otherwise be able to attain.
I do like in this show though that we've already tied up the loose ends. Like we've already rooted out some of the theories of like, at least Zosha, if we want to take her at her word, like they've already gotten to the people in the nuclear subs. They already got to the people at the International Space Station. It's like, that's where they started their kind of slow encroachment into human life. And so the fact that those people are already off the board, I don't have any reason to go to space, I don't think. I'm not looking for anything out there.
Yeah, don't want to hang out with the pod people in space. That's true. All right, so lickingthedonut@gmail.com if you have a better answer, bearing in mind that you have to do it alone and there's no earning it. There's no sweat equity placed into this. You're just given it, and so is it even enjoyable?
It's
in
true.
Rob's arcade game comp.
You know, I guess you could have the sweat equity if you could engineer it, right? Like maybe it's something where there's a long line to get the opportunity to do something difficult. Like Everest is a good example of like, I think there's like a lottery system or like a lot of hoops you have to jump through. So maybe you could cut the red tape in a way that is satisfying to then try to do the hard thing on your own.
Okay, so spend my time rather than like trying to fix this. I'm like, oh, I have some time before they pod person me.
Yes.
I will train to climb from base camp to the peak of Everest, and I will cut the line of anyone else who
Pretty good.
Because they're too busy doing whatever it is these pod people do. Donald Gleasing themselves in a closet. I don't know. Okay.
But this is where it's tempting. It's like, I would like to not have to like go to the DMV ever again for the rest of my life. You know, it's like,
now we're back in severed territory. You're just trying to sever yourself from experience. Okay. So that is episodes 1 and 2 of Pluribus. We will be back every Friday. God willing, the creeks don't rise, to bring these episodes to you. We invite, it's not there's a lot of answers. It's not like a classic theory show, but we invite your questions, your theories, your expert, I know how infectious diseases are transmitted, POVs, your desires of where you would go and what you would do and what meal you would consume, et cetera, at lickingthedonut@gmail.com. That's lickingthedonut@gmail.com.
Just some of your best work,
Thank you
Joe.
so much. Not since John Hamm's nipple rings. Anything else, Rob, before we go?
I think that's about it. I mean, if I could draw attention to one more thing I loved from these episodes, before we veer off the romantasy path, which I fear we may never return to again, so if not now, when?
Dispiriting.
The fact that her new book is the 4th book in the Winds of Wickorow trilogy, fucking great.
Winds of Wickorow is...
Wickorow, sorry.
No, it's okay. Winds of Wickorow is pretty excellent.
But somebody dangling that check to write the 4th book in the trilogy is just wonderful.
Well, on the Pluribus Reddit boards, which were hopping last night, someone made such a good George R. R. Martin joke where they were like talking about something about George R. R. Martin, and then someone replies, George R. R. Martin will do anything other than complete Winds of Wickorow. So that was really good.
Sorry, those Jets blogs aren't going to write themselves, Joe.
It's really true. Okay. Thank you to Donnie Beacham for working on this episode. Thank you to Justin Sayles, always. Also, Christopher Ryan, our pal, has a chat with Vince Gilligan. I don't know if it's actually currently up on the watch feed or will be up on the watch feed.
I believe so.
It's currently up. Okay, great.
And double the Vince Gilligan, Ben Lindbergh has an extensive interview on the Ringer TV YouTube channel, in particular, going through the plot hole or not hole of some of the deepest mysteries in Breaking Bad. So an incredible watch and listen.
Yeah, a Tahajali deep dive we didn't deserve in 2025. Thank you so much, Ben. All right, so we'll be back next week, and we'll see you soon. And stay safe and don't eat the licked donuts. Bye.